All right. So in the last video, we or a couple videos, we were doing motion tracking, right? So we took an object and we followed it, and we used the position data to apply to something else. This time we're going to do something similar. However, in addition to just applying a position change, we're also going to apply rotation. So I got this video here. This is the famous Ferris wheel in London. And as you can see, it kind of, it rotates and tilts while it moves. And I have this text, and I kind of want the text to kind of follow along while this is moving. Okay. So not only is this a position change, it's also a rotation change in that the text is going to be moving, but also rotating to fit along with the kind of axis points here. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to this video here, and we are going to go to Window and then Tracker. And like with the previous videos, let's set up a motion track. Okay. And make sure it's set to your Ferris wheel video. And then under track, make sure it's set to transform. And we want to make sure position is set up, and we also want to make sure rotation is clicked. Okay, so both of these should be turned on. That should give you two position points. Okay, so the way it works is it's if you had one position, you can kind of follow that object in terms of going up, down, left, and right. The rotation, what it basically does is it forms like a line, and then they can actually use the data to kind of like, kind of go up. So it can like figure out the angle. Okay. So this is why we need two position points. Now, if you look at this video, probably the best two things to kind of follow would be probably these uh, Ferris wheel parts, or, whatever you want to call them, rooms. So what I'm going to do is take position point one, and I'm going to set that there. And then I'm going to take this one. And so the idea is that this line is going to kind of move, and that's going to represent the rotation in terms of degrees and things like that. All right. And oops, I did it again. Where? All right. So what I'm going to do is I got these 2 points. I'm going to analyze this. And you can see how these are both following and that this line is changing. Okay. Now, if I were to go back, actually, I'm going to go here and I could edit target, and let's just, use the London text as my target. I'm going to hit apply. I want to set both the X, Y. This is going to allow for both the position and the rotation easily. And then, what happens here. Oops, let me turn the text on. There it is. You can see how the London text is kind of like following, right? See, it's like kind of, it's moving, but it's also like rotating, right? It's kind of like following that path. Now it's a little bit weird, and that's because it's trying to use the two pivot points as like the baseline for the text, which is giving it kind of this awkwardness. So let's actually undo that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a null object. The null object is actually going to hold my text. Okay, I have two pieces of text here. And let's make a new null object. Remember, a null object is like an empty thing that can move and rotate and scale, but there's no actual content in it. And I'm just going to call this text null. All right, and let's set the text to that null object. And then I'm going to go back to the video here and click on the video. That should get back my track information. And under target, let's set it from the text to the new null object that I created and hit apply. Once again, we're going to use X and Y. And if I go back, now what should happen is the null object is going to move and rotate. So if you take a look at this here, you can see how that the red box represents the null object. You can see how it's moving, but also rotating. My text is parented to that. They're children of that. And so, oops. Oh, whoops, these are parented to the wrong thing. Yeah, let's try that. There you go. And so now the text moves along. Not only does it move, but it also rotates. Okay. So that's an example of rotation being used in motion tracking. We can also use scale. So here I have this video, and in the video, they're zooming out, right? There's this, the scene, and then you can see how they're like zooming out or pulling away, right? To see more of the scene. And I got this sort of castle arms shield, and I want that to kind of move along with the scene here. So what I'm going to do is click on the video and go to tracker if it's not already available. And I'm going to click on the option that says track motion. So once again, make sure it's set to the right video. It should be set to the castle video, which it is. And let's turn on scale. I'm going to turn off position. And scale kind of works in the same way that rotation does. It takes 2 points and basically it kind of tracks the distance between those 2 points. And if the distance gets bigger, that means you're zooming in. And if the distance gets smaller between the 2 points, that means you're zooming out. So you need to find 2 points to kind of track. Here it's like I might it's not easy, but maybe I'm going to track the two tops of the castle, So maybe it's like, okay, I'm going to track the top of this castle. And I'm going to track the top of this castle. All right. And so once again, just kind of choosing 2 points. And so it's literally going to kind of follow that line. And what's going to happen is because this is zooming out, this line's going to literally get smaller. And that's how it figures out how to scale an object. So I'm going to hit analyze. And you can see it's following the tops of that castle. I'm going to then apply this to the crest. Okay. So let's hit apply. And the result of that is when I zoom out, this is kind of zooming out with it. All right. Now it's applying this directly to the scale. Now, sometimes that might not be what you want. So once again, it might be helpful to make a null object. I'm going to call this shield null. And I'm going to parent this to the shield. And the reason I do this is so that in case I want to scale it or move it or something, I can do that because you're going to get all the scale information from the video, but I may want to edit that a little bit. So what I'm going to do is let's choose that null object. I'm going to hit apply. And you can see that that's happening, right? So it's kind of zooming out. But maybe I want this to be a little bit smaller so I can like scale and move it. And you can see it goes along with that. Okay. And if I wanted to do something independent, like maybe, I don't know, have it fade in or something. So let's do 0, and then maybe it would have been good to do both the position and the scale. I feel like it's kind of jittering a little bit. Let me go back. Let's do both scale and position. And then apply that to the shield. Boom. Oops. There we go. I didn't apply it. That's why I was having trouble there. But now it's kind of moving it and scaling it all kind of together. Might have seen stuff like this, like in seen this a lot in like HGTV, where like numbers and things kind of fly around, or like the name of the city or something. So it kind of feels like it's moving along. Let's do one more. All right, so I have this video, and in this case, we're zooming in as opposed to zooming out, and I want to put some text that's going to zoom in. Okay, so it's going to say like New York. So let's just make some text, New York City. Okay. You've probably seen this something like this in a movie. So there's that. And what I want is the text to get kind of smaller as we kind of zoom in. Okay. And maybe I'll add a little drop shadow. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go to the video. And with the video selected, let's do a track motion. And let's do position and scale. Once again, it's going to give me 2 points. So you might want to find something to follow. I think in this case, the cars make very good kind of like things to follow because they kind of stay still. Like that car is really good, kind of stands out and it doesn't move much. Maybe like this car? Because we want something that stays on screen the whole time. All right, so let's do this car and then this car. All right, let's analyze that. Okay, got the data. And let's apply this to my text that I just created. Hit apply. Let's do both X and Y. Now it did, I'm gonna have, it is doing it, although it kind of moved it because it's based on the two locations that I chose. This is where the first car was. So that's why it's starting the end there. So I like that. I just don't want it in that spot. Now I could play around with I could play around with the anchor point. That would be one way to solve that problem. Or I could do a null object. There you go. So see how the text is like scaling along. So either way would work. If you wanted it to be a null object, let's make a new null object. Let's Go back, apply this. Let's select video, change the target to the null, and then apply the data to the null object. And then I'll take my text and parent it to the null. There you go. And if I want to move anything, I can just literally kind of do something like that. Um, let's change the anchor point back to the middle. And once again, maybe I'll do like a fade in. So let's set opacity to 0. And then after 2 seconds, it'll be 100. All right. There you go. So we can use motion tracking to, create certain interesting effects. Now you'll notice at this point that these are all kind of flat to the camera, but there are ways that we can eventually have things kind of work in 3D. That's going to be what's called camera tracking, which we'll get into later in this module. Okay.